Welcome back to Deal Flow Live. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the show where we break down all things business acquisitions. And today, we're talking about what your first 90 days look like for an acquisition, a business acquisition. What do you have to do? What should you do? What can you expect? And what is the reality of the situation? And it might not be quite what you think it is. It might not be quite as simple as it seems on paper or as simple as it was when it was just penciled out as a set of financials and projections. And we're going to give some real examples from an acquisition that I'm still in the midst of that happened earlier this year, still an ongoing thing. We acquired it, let's see, more than 90 days ago now. But we're in the thralls of it, and we're working, we're growing the business, and we've run into things that we were expecting and things that we weren't expecting. We're going to kind of dig deep a little bit and just talk about what you can expect. And hopefully you can get a sense watching this of whether acquiring a business is something that is the right thing for you.
I think the best point that's made is that the first 90 days, we're going to count that as post-owner transition. Most people will stay on. I mean, you're fortunate enough to have the owner well involved still in the business with you. So that's a very nice thing to have. But if you did only get the owner for a month or two, once they leave and you're just alone, let's just say it's the 2 weeks, because that apparently is what everybody wants to do. You're not walking into the business on a date where everything has basically reset and is finished. It's in the throes of whatever is happening during that time. And then once you're in there, you're locked in, and nothing is probably going to go the way that you want it to. So you need to have a very clear picture in mind of like what you need to get done, what you want to get done, and what you can put towards after those first 90 days. Because when you step in there, you have to get everybody on board with you being, the new guy in charge. You have to restructure whatever you need to restructure in the sense of jobs, expectations, and anything else in regards to positions and salaries. And you also have to make sure that you're still actively running the business without any hiccups and dealing with the problems. So I think while some people may look at it almost like a house purchase where you open the house and it's just empty, and so like, great, I can build what I want here. This is a living, breathing thing that you're stepping into, and it's not going to care if you've only had 2 weeks of training from the owner.
No, it's definitely not. And the bigger the business, the more problems it has in it. When a business grows, it grows its problems. And so like what you can expect if you become part of one is it's going to have all these little interpersonal dynamics that are not immediately obvious to you on the surface, that you only really figure out through, lots of conversation, lots of kind of interviewing, being a little bit of a detective, if you will, and just trying to get down to the grassroots of how the business works, why it works the way it works, and what's behind those things. And often, those interpersonal dynamics are things that if you were to try to drastically shake them up too much or put out of place, you might interrupt the flow of the business and the reason it's making money. So it's something that you have to kind of balance, especially, I think everyone goes into an acquisition with the idea of growth and wanting to have the business bring more and more cash flow, especially when you bring leverage to the table and you've got potentially debt service that you're paying or investors that are looking for a return of some kind. Even if it's just your own money and you're looking for a return of some kind, you obviously want growth. That's the reason you get into it. And that growth has to pair with where the business is at the moment. You have to meet it where it's at and do this delicate dance of, well, it can't stay where it's at because it needs to grow, but I can't shake the tree too hard or it's going to fall over.
It's a very particular line that you walk. Where is it? If it ain't broke, don't fix it is certainly something to live by. But there's certainly things in every business that you feel like you can tweak and change to improve it. So you're really balancing a line and towing the line with that. So I think that you can say safely that, when you come in, there are certain things that you should look to remedy almost immediately in certain areas of the business. What would you say if you had to hit your top 3 points of business in any regard? What are the most impactful and least, I'd say, boat rocking ways of improving the business out the gate?
Most impactful and least boat rocking. the number one thing you should do, and this is what we did. Actually, in our case, we did this before acquiring the business. We were lucky to have this chance. But if you have just acquired one, or if you are lucky enough to be in the position of having the access to do this before acquiring one, what we did is we interviewed everyone. We interviewed all of the employees and just asked them what's going well, what's not going well. And you get all kinds of insights. The people that are doing like the day-to-day work in the business, the less removed they are by layers of management in the business, the more they tend to know what's actually going on, right? Because they're just experiencing the day-to-day. And the bigger the business, the more that those people tend to be in their own little silos of areas. And so they might get kind of this holistic view of the business, but they're missing pieces here that this person knows. And then this person knows other pieces. And they all kind of play together to form the whole picture of what's actually going on. And you can only really start to, it's like kind of bringing this canvas together, and you're the painter. And you have no idea what you're painting yet, but you have to kind of talk to all these different parts of the business to figure out this part of the paint goes here. This is going to be green. This is going to be blue. This is going to be yellow. This is red. Oh, that's what I'm looking at. That's kind of how it comes together, is just through that slow kind of methodical, like interviewing and just getting to know what's going on. And it's what I would recommend, at least what's worked for us, is to not try to shake things up too much before getting that picture, because you might make some big change that you think is theoretically going to work and be best for the business, but you might be forgetting this giant thing or you might just be not realizing this giant thing that if you were to make this change is going to completely interrupt the way that the business flows and the way that it makes money. And if you make that change too drastically, all of a sudden, you bought this business with the idea that it's already making a certain amount of cash flow at least. And if you rob it of its ability to continue doing that and shake the boat too much, then you put yourself in a bad situation. So I think that's the least intrusive and most impactful thing I think you could do.
Okay. Because I know that when I always think about, getting into a business, it's the first question is always, how do I ensure that the people in the business already are going to feel like I have the best intentions for the business? They're going to want to trust me to keep things moving. So that's a great way of keeping everybody kind of on the same page. We're also getting an idea of, showing people that their opinions and their thoughts are important to you. So that's a big one, because I would have said just get the sales process going, but even that's probably secondary to getting everybody on board before you start going to the sales team being like, well, let's change everything right now.
That's a huge part of it too. What you said there is like getting everyone's trust. And if you do come in, I think if you just come in swinging, then everyone's going to be like, whoa, this is a lot. And I think it stirs fear. People that are working in a business and receiving a pay tend to value the consistency of that pay. It's usually the reason that they're there. So if they feel any threat to that, then it's going to stir fear, and it's going to cause them to feel potential panic and lack of faith in things going forward. So what you really want to avoid is doing anything that's going to continue, or that's going to stir up that already present fear that comes with any kind of transition. Because like typically people that are working in a business, or they're there because they don't want to take that much risk. That just tends to be my experience. Maybe they want to take some if they're in the sales department, and they want to stake their work ethic and their drive on part of their pay. But a lot of times, if they have a base salary, or if they only have a base salary, then they're mostly just worried about, hey, I just want to make sure my next paycheck is going to come in. And if you come in trying to change everything, they're going to feel like, well, is this going to topple the business? Am I going to have a job tomorrow? Am I going to continue making money? So you can't risk putting them in that position and letting them feel that fear. So I think it's really good to just get in and figure out what is working and what little minimal tweaks might be what they're already looking for, and that you actually genuinely feel like could help the business. Now, there's a flip side of that coin too, because a lot of what you're going to hear when you start talking to them is going to be, something that looks a little bit like this. It's going to be, where's the money? I want some more money. How can I get more money? And it's not a bad thing, but it's something that I think if you're coming in and you're just wanting to do the best thing for the business and provide as much money as you possibly can, it's very easy to potentially make haphazard mistakes and set new structures or new bonuses or new incentives into place without giving them enough thought. And then all of a sudden you've set the business into something that's not going to play out well. So I think it's a really good practice to just try to look at what's there, look at whether that's been working, look at how that's been influencing everything, and slowly test the idea of a change if you think it's the right thing. And only after you've kind of gotten some, what I would call market feedback, your market being your actual stakeholders of the business, the people working in it, if they're giving you feedback that something could be good and could work, that's when I think it starts to make sense.
Okay. Yeah. Because I think that the default of, well, if I can just get people a bit more money, they'll all be bought in on it. But if
not
you
always
any meaningful changes too, there's just, okay, I'll just collect this check a little longer till I can find somebody else who I think actually knows what they're doing.
Sure. Sometimes incentives can backfire, and you've got to be ready to be able to track that and to be able to watch what's going on and to be able to keep an eye on that and to be able to pivot and adjust if that happens.
You can't box yourself into a corner by offering more and then not really putting guardrails on how or why the bonuses are existing. So,
and you have to think about, with that more, how does the cash flow of the business start to work? How does that sit? Because the giving more, it has to come with them making more for the business too. I think so often people just want to get into this appeasement mindset where they just want to appease what everyone is looking for, and oh, you want more money, here's more money, you take more money, you take more money. They don't think about, what does that have to come with for the business to continue to succeed and thrive, and what does that conversation have to look like? And kind of a good lens that I've just always thought through this with is the Spider-Man. It's like a spinoff of the Spider-Man quote, the Uncle Ben quote. He says, with more power comes more responsibility. So I've always thought of it as just, with more pay comes more responsibility. If you're asking for more pay in the business, if you're looking for more pay, it's got to come with more responsibility too. And I think anytime that someone's coming to you asking for that, it's a useful it's a useful time to get into the conversation of, well, let's talk about what that would look like and what your route there could be.
There's just so much nuance to the process of getting into the business, and to get at beyond you have the white paper, you have the plan, you've sat down with the owner, the numbers made sense, you know exactly how you're going to go in, what you're going to do to improve everything, and all this other stuff. And then the human element comes into play, which, while straightforward on the surface, provides a lot of almost a labyrinthine-like level of complexity when it comes to simply applying things. So there's definitely a lot that I feel like people forget, that stepping into that business when it's in the middle of, especially if you buy it and you get into not a shoulder season, but you're in the full heat of the regular busy season, you're going to have a little to no time to really make any mistakes, essentially. So getting this right and knowing how to do these things, and I guess maybe even just following the steps that you laid out, might actually be the safest play if somebody's acquiring something and going into a middle of a busy season. Yeah,
I think it just takes a while. It takes longer than most people realize, myself included, myself and my business partners included. Takes a lot longer than most people realize to fully grasp everything that's going on. And any business has skeletons in the closet, and some of those will come out in due diligence. Some of them won't. Many of them are only going to come out once you're actually in the closet. You're in the very back of the closet, and you start finding these skeletons you never expected. And it shouldn't be something that's looked at as oh, this was misrepresented, or this was a problem. It should be looked at as, okay, well, I should have this is something to expect. I need to be ready for this. How am I going to deal with this? How am I going to take this in stride, make a plan around it, and adjust? And there's all these kind of micro adjustments that have to happen to the plan. It's not so simple as recasting the profit and loss statement and just doing a little bit different things. that people element is really where things get interesting. And that's where that's where the dance comes in. That's where the nuance comes in.
There really is just so much to the people side, and we could probably do a whole nother episode just on people, how to get them on your side, and how to not disrupt the natural flow of a business that you acquire, while simultaneously sniffing out the bad actors, bad apples, whatever you want to call them, because that in and of itself, probably a whole nother video. Because every time you come into a business, there's always going to be some people that are just it. You could be doing everything right, they're just not going to like you, or they just don't like the business, and the old owner just didn't have the time to deal with them. And now you're here, and you probably should get them out as quickly as possible.
It's a fantastic point, and I think a good litmus test for that is, without overly soliciting for it and bringing your own bias into it, what are their coworkers saying about them? How do their coworkers feel? What do they naturally say when you just have a conversation about the business? And are they bringing this person up as someone who they think is an issue and giving good, valid reasons for why? Because again, they know the most about the business, not just about the way the business runs, but about the other people in the business. And you've got to listen to them. It doesn't mean like if one coworker comes to you and says, "Hey, Brody's a problem," that you just fire Brody. It means you take it into account and you look for patterns. You look for that to match up with what they were saying. And again, try not to be biased with it. But when you're hearing it from multiple people that one person is an issue, and that doesn't quite match up with what that person is saying, it's a decent chance you've got a cancer on your hands, and you might have to excise that cancer. And we've had situations like that with people. Unfortunately, we've had problems. We about doubled the head count of the technicians of our company this year in the name of growth, and it's been amazing. But it's come with a couple bad apples, and we've had to cut the bad apples off the tree.
They don't list that on the listing sites, on the broker sites. You don't get that there's no book, no course, no write up that really tells you this is going to be a problem. You should expect it. But I think from the people, everybody who's watching this, who maybe has owned a business or has bought a business and ran it, they're probably all shaking their heads going, "Yep, that I can think of 7 different experiences that match up with these off the top recently." So it's always something to keep in mind, that it isn't just, run some math, look at some sheets and be like, I understand what the premise is. I'll go in there, I'll get the SEO up, and I'll do all this other stuff. That's all well and good, but the people are going to make or break you at the end of the day, because without them, you're nothing. And especially if you're not good to them, I mean, there are other options out there, even if you think you're the only player in town.
Yeah, like you said, the whole like marketing and SEO thing, I think, is a good example, because that's something that we've done. But to give an example in the business, like we've for the residential division, we like tripled ad spend since we started with it, just under tripled. And it's come with this amazing influx of leads. But then there's people to think about. And people, what do? They make mistakes. We had an issue recently where the person running the residential had not put a couple jobs into the shared calendar. So when the person that is in the office kind of scheduling everything out, put something into the calendar, all of a sudden, oh, we're double booked. That's a problem. And you just have to account for little things like that. You have to account for the human error. The biggest thing that's not written on the listing sites is that you can tell someone to do something. You can even pay them to do what they're told to do. It doesn't necessarily mean they're going to do it when they're told. And that is just the reality of business and managing people. And so it's not so simple as just drawing up the perfect plan and it being followed. You've got to make sure that you keep grasp of the thing and keep it running the right way until you get the right leadership in place to do that for you.
There's just so much that goes into this stuff that I think it's oversimplified. I mean, I think one of the ways you can kind of insulate yourself is you buy a more larger scale operation business. You buy something with quite a few people in it, maybe a minimum of 15 to 20 people. you've got a good amount of people to kind of move around to kind of get your stuff done. But if you buy
Sure.
a small operation, it's weird to say, but the smaller the operation, the more magnified these issues become.
That's right.
So
Because more of them are your responsibility.
yeah. So if you can afford to buy something with more people, always look for something that has more people and is more established.
That being said, the flip side of that coin is, and we've felt this very drastically, if you really, really care about the business that you're trying to grow, which you should if you've acquired one, whether you're on the hook for the money personally or not, you should care about it. And you should really, really try to do everything in your power to keep it growing, keep it thriving. If you do really care about that business, you're going to naturally want to pour into that business as much as you can to grow it and do what you can. It's going to be a natural urge. The trap there is coming into that, really having this awesome plan for growth. The trap is that you start pouring your time into the wrong parts of the business. You start taking on job roles. And I'll tell you firsthand, the team members of the business, they would love for you to do that. They would love for you to come in and just do their job for them, and they'll let you. So there's a trap there. And I think sometimes that happens when people acquire a business too, is they come in and they get excited and they're like, oh, we could do this. I'll do it. Let's just do it. And everyone that's like been collecting a check there that's in the business, they're like, sure. Yeah, you can do that. Like, that sounds great. What you really have to strike the balance of is you have to come in and have the plan, but be able to effectively delegate that as well. And if you're not prepared to delegate, then that, you could end up coming into that business that you mentioned, 15, 20 people. Ours was about 14, 15, 16 at the most when we came in, now closer to 30. But we very easily, many times we have still a balance we're figuring out, have come in and just fallen into like what should be someone's job responsibility. And it's a constant balance of figuring out how do you effectively delegate that while also helping and giving an assistance to try to reach new heights that you weren't at before. Such as the dance.
I think at the end of the day, when it comes down to buying a business and getting into it and actually making applicable changes, if you're big, you're going to have them. If you're small, you're going to have them. If you're mid-size, you're going to have them. You really just can't escape the core principles that we talked about today. And I think that it's important that people, no matter how good and how streamlined the business is, you're going to hit these at some point, or more than likely within your first 90 days from what we've seen and experienced. So that's why we always say, hey, look, if the budget allows for you to hire on the owner and they're willing to be hired on, keep them on. Because, if an owner is willing to stay on and help you kind of smooth over that thing, that is a right-hand man that is basically indisposable. I mean, if they're kind of like, I'll do it, and they're begrudging about it and they're not terribly helpful, maybe it's not the greatest situation. But if they're more than willing to stay on for a paycheck and a 9 to 5, and they just do not want to own her anymore, they want you to own her, great. That will probably smooth over a good chunk of those problems, but the rest of them will still be there, even with or without them.
Yeah, I would even say it could be just a good fit to expect to put the owner on salary for a good 3 to 6 months and kind of set out with the intention that, hey, this is a temporary thing. Could extend if you needed to and you guys mutually agree. I would almost go to say, like, it makes sense to just put them on salary for a few months just to have them there and be able to navigate those things. I'll use an example. There was a situation the other day in our business where we were having this meeting, we were talking about sales, and we thought, it sounds like we need to order this new piece of equipment. The other owner, our partner, who has been running this business a lot longer than we have, was not at that meeting, but later he heard about it and he said, well, did they try this? Did they try that? Did they try to fix it? And if it turned out that there was a fix to the broken equipment and we didn't have to get a very expensive equipment replacement. If you just bought the business and you didn't know that, like, we wouldn't know to look out for that. So there are very valuable little pieces of insights that can save you money via you not having to spend it or you making more of it, that are really kind of the heartbeat of the business.
Yeah, I mean, I really don't think there's a better way to say it. That when you can get that owner on, you keep it on. I mean, experience will trump excitement every time. So, I guess to wrap this one up, Brody, what kind of what kind of our points are? What were we hitting on? What were if you get 3 takeaways? What are we saying?
The 3 biggest takeaways that I would say for your first 90 days are: start with interviewing everyone, get to know the entire staff as much as you can. Even if it's 100-person organization, I would say do that. Collect the feedback that they have about what's going on. Number 2 thing is be prepared to strike the balance between firm and fair. You need to be firm in the plan that you have and not willing to budge on certain aspects of it. And you need to be able to stand strong and disagree with people a decent bit of the time. A lot of times people are going to want things from you as the new owner that do not fit into that plan. And you have to remember that at the end of the day, you do have to make the decisions that are best for the business overall, but you also have to be fair. The reason you have to be fair is because you don't want anyone to go anywhere. They are the business. If you lose all your people, you don't have a business. So you have to be fair. You have to keep things within reason. You can't just be a no man. You can't just be a yes man. The third thing that I would say is be flexible. Be ready for the skeletons in the closet. They're going to be there. They're going to happen. And that there could be ones that drastically change what you thought was the plan, or drastically change how you can come to or bring that plan to fruition. And you got to just be ready for that. And the truth is you just have to win anyway. There's no choice. You put yourself in a situation where you own a business, you've got to win. So if you don't deal with it, you don't win. You lose, you're out of business. So you just win.
Yeah, you don't get the paycheck if the business doesn't do well. You're not an employee anymore. You're an owner. It's a completely different set of rules at that point.
Mm-hmm. And I think if you could stick to those 3 things and really be prepared for those, I think you could have a smooth integration process and be able to fit into this business and be looked at as a respectable leader.
I think that's a great thing for you to also write an article on. I think a lot of people would like that as well. We might see that in the future.
I think you probably will. Look for it on my newsletter that goes out every Wednesday. It's called the Better Business Brief. Best place to find it is on my LinkedIn. You can go find, almost 100 of them that I've been doing weekly for a long time now, and just go sign up there.
That's fantastic. And they can find you on LinkedIn as well and Instagram, right?
Best place to find me is probably, either LinkedIn or Instagram. I post the same thing on both, but I'd say go LinkedIn because I post even more there than I do on Instagram. I post articles. I post this show. I post daily videos about what I'm doing, what we're doing in Scale for Sale, and just a good way to kind of stay up to date and figure out what this stuff looks like. Be on the journey with me, whether I win or not.
And a very nice merch, Scale for Sale, you're repping today. Love
that. I am repping the Scale for Sale shirt. We got these recently. I don't know if you had seen this one yet.
No, I didn't. I noticed.
Might have to get one for you.
Nice. I would love one. Yeah.
All right.
And if you have a business or you know somebody who has one who'd like to work with Scale for Sale, go to the website. Is it scaleforsale.com? Just flat out? Scaleforsale.com.
I'll zoom in on the logo here. Looks just like this. Literally just the word scaleforsale.com.
Any manner of businesses, give us a call. We can help you out. We can figure out a plan that works for you. And I don't want to spoil anything, but in the next few months, there's going to be some very cool things that are happening at Scale for Sale here that I think even if you don't have a business, you're definitely going to want to be tuning in for the for some stuff that's going on. So follow.
Got some exciting stuff in the works. Tune in every Tuesday night at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We might even have some extras coming to those time slots soon, but definitely tune in for our live show and let us know what questions you have. In the meantime, we'll see you on the next one.